Thank you. Roll call of members. If members appear online, roll call voting must be used. So we'll just Jeff Salzer, chair.
Tom Bledsoe, alternate.
Vic Michelle, a member.
Peter McIver, member.
All right, and because we don't have a full bench, I'll elevate Tom Bledsoe to a voting member today. All right, next order of business, approval of the meeting minutes of January 21st, 2026.
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Anyone have any edits or comments on it?
Very good.
Great.
It seemed to be accurate with what I saw in the video.
All right, so motion to approve the minutes.
I'm moved already.
Second, anyone?
Second.
All in favor? Actually, you can't vote. So Victor?
Aye.
Jeff? Aye.
Aye.
Gonna do that verbally.
I can vote.
To approve it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
You watched
watched the whole
video.
meeting.
That's true. Okay, good.
Aye.
Thank you. Do that verbally because Peter's on the online. Okay, next order of business updates from the mayor's office. No topics reasonably anticipated by the chairperson. Nothing to add there, right?
No.
Okay, next item, public comment. Members of the public may speak for up to 3 minutes as recognized by the chair. Please raise your hand in Zoom. And we'll get to you. We'll start with people in the room. And just want to say, because I know that there are people in the room that have a strong opinion about this matter, we might give another chance to talk to. We want to give people a chance to share their voice. We've gotten a lot of comments, email to us. We've reviewed all those. They're all in our packets as well. So let's do a first round of comment. Then we'll do our thing, but we'll give another chance for people to talk if they want to later. Just in the meantime, that'll let us work and speak. You'll have a chance to speak back in later in the process.
When do they present?
After public comment. Okay, so let's get started. Now we'll start with the folks in the room. Who wants to speak today? All right, you can just come on up. We don't. No, there's just a few people, so you can just come on up. Make sure that you're speaking into the microphone.
Just give your name and your street address.
Hi, my name is Pamela Goodwin. I'm at 54 High Street. I've had experience being unhoused. I've been on the ad hoc, appointed by the mayor. I'm also volunteering at the warming center. And I was born here when it was a town, but went to the eastern part of the state and came back. So I guess what I want to say is a couple of things. I remember when the Arch Street had a little bakery bistro. DCF was upstairs because I had a foster child that I had to take back and forth. It was also in the past transitional assistance. So that's what I remember it being in the past. And I hate going back in the past, but I think for me, it's kind of relevant, what it used to be and then now what it's become. So as a person who interviewed a lot of people the last couple of years and spoke with them and created relationships with our homeless people, I'm hearing some concerns from them. Some of it has to do with ServiceNet, some of it has to do with CSO. I take it with a grain of salt, but I've heard enough comments of some people being fairly unhappy about services. I work with an unhoused person, helping his public defender in and out of district court. I've known him for quite some time. I've met his family. He has a formal complaint that has been lodged against one of the agencies. So I'm here because we know we need to continue housing the people that were moved from the wells into this particular place. So I'm not opposed to that at all because I have no idea where we would put them. I know the quantity of people that we get in the warming center being open this year, and I also worked there last year. But I am concerned about the future plans. And I say that because I attended a Human Rights Commission. There were grievances. it kind of went south. I'll use that as an expression. People came in who were in charge of the place, lawyers of theirs were there. It didn't really go anywhere. And so I would hope, and this would be my hope, and I think would be most people's hope, that there would be continuing oversight somehow, so that if there are in fact legit grievances, then they are dealt with in a proper manner. That's not the role of the planning board, but that's one of my number one priorities, is taking care of them properly. I will tie this in with what's been talked about in city council, what I talked about and others talked about today, working with the HLC about affordability and housing and the unhoused, as well as another state agency. So we all know we need housing, and I just really want the needs met in a proper way. We have a whole lot of agencies. I counted 17, I think it's more like 21. And so with that much money, that much funding, that many different entities working alongside the unhoused, I really want to see it work a little better or operate. I always said that there was a communication gap. So that's just my public comment.
Thank you very much.
So I'm thrilled that we have a place that we could put them. I'm a little miffed as a member of Housing Greenfield that we have to wait until August. But we all know nothing really goes according to plan. And I really appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Half of mine on. That's because it's hard for me to read and stuff and pronounce it the right way. So I'm gonna use you guys and this, but my name's Ryan Whitney. I live on Chapman Street. I'm a butter to the project. And I'd just like to echo, because it's only a minute and a half, the same thing that she said. I'm not against homeless. I really was like a homeless advocate at one time. I was out there down in the rivers helping people. There's paper articles about me. So if you got an idea of I hate homeless people, no, I want my friends not to die. I want them to continue to be harmed by harm reduction and lies about, programs that aren't helping them. So it has nothing to do with the hate of the homeless. I was homeless and drug addicted myself until Stephanie saved me. So it's because this is a lot easier. I'll adjust the volume if it's too loud.
My name is Ryan Whitney. I have lived here in Greenfield for 8 years, in the house that my partner Stephanie Duclos owns. As this board is already aware, we have raised concerns about this shelter since the beginning, and those concerns are documented. Let's be honest with each other. This isn't really a decision tonight. Denying this would unravel years of quiet rule bending, zoning violations, and back-end accommodations. It's easier to approve it and move on than to admit the process was broken from the start. Clinical and support options owned the buildings. When they were building a new facility, they relocated current residents into another clinical and support options owned property as the most economical solution. We objected. Evidence was submitted. It didn't matter. The planning board allowed it anyway, and everything since has flowed from that decision. I'm not guessing here. I've followed every meeting. I've traced every limited liability company. I've contacted the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities and the Department of Mental Health myself. I asked for proof of these so-called programs. Education, treatment, structure. There is none. No receipts, no audits, no independent verification. The only people saying the services exist are the same people getting paid to say they exist. That's not oversight. That's self-certification. The Dover Amendment is being used as a shield to eliminate local authority entirely. What was meant to protect legitimate uses is now a loophole big enough to drive any operation through, regardless of impact. You can approve this tonight, but you should understand what that approval represents. Not compliance, not success, not help, just the continuation of a system where accountability is optional and neighborhoods absorb the consequences. My name is Ryan Whitney. I have lived here in Greenfield for 8 years, in the house that my partner Stephanie Duclos owns. As this
Now it's going to go through my phone. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's be honest with each other.
just like I said, I've contacted all of those agencies and I have the emails to prove it. I'm sorry, my phone messed up, but I do have emails that show there's no records of our state agencies. I mean, any of the information that they're claiming. I have the email.
My name is Stephanie Duclos. I live at 166 Chapman Street. A legal abutter to the proposed elevation of a non-conforming building. I want to clarify the Dover Amendment does not shield CSO or their numerous associated subsidiaries and contractors and subcontractors from complying with all other state laws, building codes, federal laws, and all other applicable health and safety codes as stated in the AG's municipal guidance on July 11th, 2025. I think this board likes qualifications. So one, before I discuss my qualifications, I'll say that no locus map was ever provided, not in the first application and not subsequent. I was a former compliance inspector with a C3P LIHTC designation. I was BPI trained for energy efficient for LEED properties. I worked with hoarders and disenfranchised populations to bring their housing units up to health and safety standards. I was also a maintenance supervisor for community builders. I was also a file compliance inspector across several portfolios for many years for TCB throughout the Commonwealth. I left on medical issues. I have years of education in law, in sustainability, renewable and environmental studies. I have several degrees and certifications in housing, education, business, and real estate. I am speaking today about my own visual observations and conflicting maps that are provided to me by the assessor's office that conflict with the maps that hang in the planning department, where the approvals would be made in a conservation if an NOI were filed, which none ever were, and it went through the proper city codes in Greenfield that requires an NOI because we are surrounded by water, waterways, blocked culverts, and non-permitted impervious surfaces being added to the area. The area I've lived in that 4-block radius for 47 years. There is no one more expert to that neighborhood than myself. I know the history of it. I know the mapping of it. I had bought my house off of One Arch Place, the prior owners before CSO bought it off of One Arch Place Incorporated and Paul Beans. I know what happened with the use of the easements and the rights of ways of the railroad that are non-conforming, that are currently being used as parking spaces and turnarounds for their deliveries that happen. The boundary crosses its uses into a more restrictive residential boundary. The laws of our A district also apply to the project as it is within the 50 feet and utilizes a portion of my property, which they don't have the right to do. They have trespassed, encroached. My property was rented out as a parking lot for their overflow when Bridge Primary was also operating out of compliance with our code because you cannot operate a medical clinic or facility and see patients and pharmacies in the Central Commercial District. Although Eric did try to change that right before he left. Victor had asked at a meeting, he said, well, would there be any outdoor? We don't have to supply any of that because there's no outdoor construction happening. He asked the question. They said Oh, there's none of that. Well, I have supplied many, and I'm sure you'll have access to the record, many videos, many photos that would OSHA complaints, Mass DEP complaints about what has happened. There are environmental studies that existed. They are on the record of the deed of 6 Arch Street. They are in non-compliance with our codes. An elevation of an already illegal non-conforming building would put this city in litigation.
Thank you.
And like I said, I'll give you guys another chance to talk later in the meeting, so.
I won't speak down.
Okay, well, you have, if you choose to,
I can rebut a little bit, thanks.
we'll try to keep it minimal. All right. So we have a lot of,
Mr. Chair, there is.
oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, so we have people online. One hand, Greenie Greenfield, go ahead. Muted.
Thank you. I tried to change the name and I wasn't able to do it. My name is Susan Wargaftic. I am both representing myself and Housing Greenfield. There well may be merit in many of the things that Stephanie has talked about. I don't know. I think it's something that you all should look at. But for this period of time between now and the middle of August, we very much ask that you maintain the present situation for the shelter at 6 Arch Street. Right there for the last 5 years, at least, the shelter has been full regardless of the season. That is going to continue. We have no reason to expect that it won't. Where people go, if that is closed down, in June or we don't know. So for the period of time that we're talking about, we would very much appreciate it if the city could maintain the present status quo and keep the shelter at 6 Arch Street open until the Wells Street shelter is available. Questions about oversight, questions about services, I think obviously have to be dealt with if they are to be considered, and then this is under state contracts, all of that can be done. And in terms of many of the things that Stephanie is talking about, I think that should be part, you're doing an overview, I think that should be part of it. But for the purposes of this meeting and this issue, if you can extend that permit so that CSO can continue housing unhoused members of our community in that building until the Wells Street shelter is complete, we would greatly appreciate it. I realized I didn't give my address. I live at 45 Forest Avenue in Greenfield. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Anyone else on the phone who would like to speak? Okay, moving on. Next item, site plan review. Application of Clinical and Support Options, Inc. for property located at 6 Arch Street, Assessors Map 64, Lot 18, for site plan review and approval pursuant to Section 200-8.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to allow the continued use of a portion of the second floor office space as a temporary individual shelter and housing resource space. The space will accommodate up to 45 shelter beds, while the shelter at 60 Wells Street is under construction. The applicant was issued a site plan approval for the same proposed use on January 4th, 2024, with the condition that the approval would expire after 16 months. The original site plan approval was exercised with a certificate of occupancy issued on December 18th, 2024, extending to April 17th, 2026. The expected duration of the use of the space for a temporary shelter is approximately 4 more months until August 17th, 2026. So before we get into this, George Olympus, who's normally with us, is not here today. Because this is the only item on the agenda, he was going to recuse himself from that matter. He did so last time as well, 2024, because he is an employee of CSO. He thought there's no point in sitting here recused, so he just wouldn't come. But he wanted people to understand that's why he's not here, and that's why he recused himself. But nevertheless, we have a quorum, so we can continue. All right, so I think we could start with the applicant. We have a presentation. You want to come forward and introduce yourself and tell us about the project.
Thank you. My name is George Dole. I'm a project manager with Jones Woodson Architects in Florence, Mass. And we've worked with CSO for several years. We are working with them both on the 60 Wells Street project as well as the temporary shelter at 6 Arch Place. I'm going to start a little bit of this presentation, then I'm going to hand it over to Jane and some other people from CSO, and then I'll pick up afterwards. So this is a presentation we coordinated with CSO and provided to Ella, and we can go through this.
And just for what it's worth, we have a few extra copies if people want to take a look.
I have the digital.
Oh, just pull it up. Never mind. Well, we still have a few extra copies.
So this is, most of this material is material that's been provided before to the planning board. This is a photo of the site from the southeast looking northeast towards the building. And again, the goal here is to get an extension of the approved site plan review. Go to the next page. So the items here include presentation of CSO and the shelter program overview, which would be done by representatives of CSO. And then I will come back and give additional information on the project overview, site plan, floor plan, and photos of existing conditions. And we also have Randy Lachlan, who's a owner's project representative, long-term construction knowledge base, who's been involved with the project. So at this point, I'll let Jane or whoever else from CSO give more information, then I'll come back later.
Okay.
All right.
It should be on to the next slide. Sure.
Could you want to come up to
Sure.
microphones up here? People will be able to introduce yourself, please.
Jane Banks, I'm the Vice President of Housing and Homeless Services with CSO. And so I think everybody here mostly knows that we're a nonprofit behavioral health agency. And part of the work that we do is having the individual shelter system. So we have shelters in Springfield, Northampton, and we have the shelter in Greenfield. And so we are serving individuals there. People sleep there, they have their meals there. We do work with folks around housing, making sure that we're working on their rehousing. They have the documents that they need, all of that kind of stuff. We serve meals there every day. Folks can take showers, do their laundry, work with our resource centers around different activities and community events, and really looking at making sure that we can individualize plans so that folks can move on to permanency down the road. So we don't have a length of stay. So folks can stay there for as long as they need to until they get housed. Any questions?
If they don't have a length of stay, that means some of you just stay there for indefinitely. As long as they want.
We really work towards focusing on having people work towards getting housing, and that takes a while. So it's not that we don't have a length of stay, but we also, the journey from homelessness into housing takes time. And so I think that we know in all of our communities that there's not a lot of housing inventory, and that when even if you're a landlord purchasing property, you're purchasing property at a really high rate, which means that rents are high, your insurance is high, your taxes are high. So it's really hard for people who are poor, making minimum wage or less, to be able to afford housing. So we do a lot of work with folks to figure out different ways to increase their income. We have a shared housing model that we work with folks to be able to have people become roommates with each other, and doing a really good job at matching people so that if somebody is going to be a roommate with somebody else, that it's successful and they understand sort of the expectations. I think that some of us have probably lived with roommates before, and so that's a delicate dance oftentimes. So it's really understanding sort of lease compliance, working with landlords, and really helping people to understand, like, if I'm a late night person and you're an early morning person, we may not be a good match in some ways. So there's some work to that.
What would you say your success rate has been on getting people out of the shelter?
I think that our overall length of stay within our shelter system and across the state is around 90 days. Ours is in Franklin and Hampshire County is about 102 to 115 days. So we're pretty good at it.
Can I ask you about the education and training services you
Sure.
provide?
Yeah, so we work with folks around, and we work with employers. So we have housing navigators who have contact with different, employment folks so that we can work with our guests around resumes, communication, how to have an interview, how to present for a job, like all of those are sort of educational things. We work with folks to get their GEDs if they need a GED. So all of those things happen through our case management, our resource center, and our housing navigators. We have community support workers that will also go out and do work and support our individuals in connecting with services.
And would you say that the programming has been pretty consistent since the last site plan approval, and
Yeah, we're pretty consistent. Yeah.
the previous 16 months have been?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have a really good model that we use that we've developed. And so because all of our shelters are different sizes and all of them have like little different niches, Greenfield is pretty small. And so we're able to really work in a more intentional, more intimate, I guess, way with our folks to be able to really develop strong relationships with them, but they've developed strong relationships within each other. And so it makes for a really, really nice sort of positive environment for people to grow, learn, develop, move on. People who have been housed come back oftentimes and reconnect with us.
I know this is about this current location, but when you move to the new location, 60 Wells, will there be more services and support than you can provide now where you're located, or how will things change when it's moved there?
I think that it'll be a state-of-the-art facility. So we're going to have commercial kitchen. We'll have a dining area so folks can have meals there. We'll have housing upstairs. People can come downstairs and have meals there. We'll have case management, housing workers there. Folks from the community, even at Arch Place, will come in and provide workshops and services for folks. All of those things will still be happening at the new location. It'll just be in a space that's been designed to accommodate those things.
And is there a thought about what happens in the current space after?
That is, I am the Vice President of Housing and Homeless Services. I work on the shelter, so I don't know what the plan is.
We keep going to the slides?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, George Dole from Jones Swinson Architects, and I'll give a bit of the development project overview. So the shelter was formerly housed at 60 Wells Street, and the project, a long-term project of the 36 supportive housing units and 45 shelter beds, had been in planning for a long time and finally started to move ahead. It involved us finding a temporary location for the shelter so that while the new project was being completed at 60 Wells, we would be able to have housing for those who needed shelter space. And ultimately, it was determined after researching multiple options, including trailers and things like that in parking lots, that the most logical and most comprehensive for the clients would be to have the space within the second floor of One Arch Place. So at that point, in December of 2023, and through a meeting in early January 2024, we were granted a site plan review and approval for that 16-month period that the chair mentioned. And again, that commenced in December of 2024 with a 16-month period through April of 2026. Again, noted here are some of the project delays, the reason why we're here at this meeting. Obviously, the goal was to finish it in a pretty aggressive 16-month schedule. That didn't happen. There was a delay in the state finance project closing. There's multiple partners on that. So that limited the mobilization by the general contractor, which is Allegroni Construction out of Lenox, Mass, who've done multiple housing projects and a very good contractor. So that limited us through the months of November through February, just in terms of funding and allowance of what they were able to actually do at that point. So they were not able to be fully mobilized. There's obviously been, as most of you are aware, over the last 2 years, significant global supply chain disruptions, including tariffs and issues of being able to procure lumber from Canada or lumber from other places, materials, equipment. There's delays on multitude of type of transformers, et cetera. So all these things have caused some delays in the current project, but now we're in pretty good shape. There was also significant sheet shoring that had to be done at the site at 60 Wells. There's an underground waterway that's down 28 feet, and we had to be cognizant of that and make sure that we didn't damage that and make sure that the town can get to that if they need to in the future. And then there's just been weather impacts. It was a wet summer, and winter came early this year, unlike some years. So the beginning of December, it got very cold, and some of the outside work that we're hoping to do for the month of December was not going to be able to be done till come March. But we feel pretty comfortable that we will get done in the 4-month extension and be able to move people into the shelter at that point, into the new shelter. We can next go to the next slide. This is a locus map of the site plan of the current location of the temporary shelter. North is to the left here. Chapman Street is to the east, up to the upper part of the page. The railroad tracks are to the bottom of the page to the west, and you can see the Arch Street Bridge. The main entrance into the site is by Sherwin-Williams. And then you come down, there's multitude of parking. There's a long covered porchway at the west side of 6 Arch Place. And the black dot in the middle represents the accessible entrance into the space, including stairs and an elevator up to the 2nd floor, which covers approximately the southern 1/3 of the main building for the shelter space for the 45 clients. And the next sheet gives a picture of the floor plan of the shelter. And again, this is a little hard to see, but if you thank you. You can see the red lines are kind of egress routes. There's 2 paths out from the 2nd floor, one through the stairwell next to the elevator. In the common area, the building's fully sprinklered. And if you go through there, when you first enter in, there's a dining area and night entrance, kitchen area, dining, living space and resource center where educational programming occurs, and then additional staffing areas, as well as group meeting rooms, and then sleeping areas for clients, and then 2 full restrooms with showers and toilets and sinks, a laundry area, and then again, the second means of egress through the building.
This is how it was constructed initially and not changing, right?
That's how it was discussed. Yes, exactly. There is no changes with our planned hopeful 4-month extension. There will be no additional work at all at the outside or the inside of the building. The next sheet shows a couple photos. The one on the left is again the one that was on the cover of the presentation, a view from the southwest looking towards the northeast, showing the railroad track, the side bank, parking at the west side of 6 Arch Place, as well as the secondary means out of onto Chapman Street. And then on the right is the view of the main entrance into the elevator area, including accessible ramp, accessible parking spaces into the building. And the next sheet on the left, this shows a seating area for good weather use for clients to congregate outside in a safe area with seating, which is to the north side of the main building. And then there's 2 locations where clients are allowed to come down for smoke breaks, and they have receptacles to allow them to extinguish their smoking paraphernalia and then go back to the shelter space. And again, that's limited in terms of when they can go in terms of nighttime hours, which Jane would be able to give more information on.
So there's two locations for that?
Yes, there's one there. There's also one, it's not noted, but it's right across from from where the bike storage is, right by the bank, right when you first drive into the spot. If you want to bring back up the site plan, I can show that. So where it says loading dock, if you just head down towards the bank a little bit more, right there, that's the secondary spot where it's just basically a post with a extinguishing cigarette area where clients may smoke a cigarette standing up and then go back to the shelter space or do other activities if they're going somewhere else during the day.
Is there a reason why the smoking areas are so minimally furnished?
I think the goal is that, smoking is not encouraged on the property. So it's meant to be just to go out there, have a cigarette and then go back to the shelter. So it's not supposed to be a place for long-term congregation. So that covers most of the slides that we presented. Glad to answer any other questions about the construction standpoint of the temporary shelter as well as the 60.
So there's no additional work at all happening at Arch Street, inside, outside, nothing.
Correct. Our only intention here is to get the extension from the April 17th to the August 17th date.
That's enough time?
We hope so, yes.
What's your plan if this goes back to CSO? What will be your plan if this gets denied? What's your plan?
That's for CSO to answer, not.
That's why I kind of
Yeah.
looked over my shoulder.
I'm glad to step down and let anyone else answer any questions. Do you have any other questions for me from an architectural construction standpoint?
I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Do you want?
Yes, and yet, this is just a
Yeah.
general question.
Yeah, no, I'm
Wow.
Karen Jeffers. I'm the president and CEO at Clinical and Support Options. And completely honestly, there is no plan because there would not be adequate time to be able to find a location that could house 45 people and meet code and move them out and in and then back into Wells Street. So
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what I think you were going to say, but just kidding.
I have to
There's something-
completely honestly,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
While you're here, is there thoughts about what happens with this property after the move to Wells Street?
In terms of this exact location.
Yeah.
We're evaluating that right now. We've got a couple of different programs that are kind of consistently out of space. So we do outpatient services, we have crisis services. I think our first and foremost interest in this space is making sure that we're taking care of the individuals who need a place to be and getting them over to Wells Street. And then we'll kind of start a strategic planning process for what makes sense to go into there next. We do own the entire building, so it would be our preference to be able to utilize the space for programming that we provide.
Did you own it before it became a shelter? Or
Arch
did you acquire
Place.
it?
Yeah, we moved in 2004. No, 12. We moved in 2009 as renters, and with a rent to own purchase, and then we purchased in 2012, we purchased it. So, yeah, we originally moved our outpatients in and then we purchased it.
All right, any other questions for CSO?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, a second. Peter, I cannot see your hand at the moment, so if you can just chime in if you ever want to speak.
Got it. Thank you.
Here, okay, we're back up. All right. So maybe the next thing to do, we investigated several concerns and complaints and questions from the public. Ellie, you put together a really helpful memo that provided context as well. So we have that memo from you, and then we also have letters from various boards or departments across the city responding to very specific questions that they've received. Would it be best, do you think, to start with your memo and then walk through those department
Sure.
letters?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. There are copies for folks in the room if you're interested. So my memo, establishes the zoning district, goes through a little bit of the summary of the permitting and legal history of this, recent legal history of this site since the site plan approval. We haven't yet discussed. So, the CSO received a site plan approval from this board on January 4th, 2024, in order to allow the conversion of a portion of the second floor office space into temporary individual shelter and housing resource space. And that site plan approval was conditioned that it shall last for 16 months. A building permit was issued, and that was appealed by Stephanie Duclos. The appeal was heard by the Greenfield Zoning Board of Appeals and denied. And the denial reads, the temporary relocation of the shelter from 60 Wells Street is a use allowed by right and does not require the issuance of a special permit. Then 6 Arch Street was issued a temporary certificate of occupancy by our inspector in December. And that certificate of occupancy extended again, had a condition of just 16 months. As you've heard, the applicant then submitted another application just last month for the extension of the site plan approval for 4 more months. Given the concern about this project and that historical background, we provided a butter notification and public notice in the Greenfield Reporter, which is not required for site plan review. So a little bit more explanation of that ZBA appeal. 3 reasons were given. 3 reasons were given in the appeal decision. 1, the use falls under the educational nonprofit status under the Dover Amendment. 2, the use is allowed by right under section 207.10 of our zoning ordinance. And 3, the use is allowed by right under section 204.7B of the zoning ordinance. So that's a lot of jargon, so wanted to explain that a little bit further. The Dover Amendment is from the state law. It's a Massachusetts law that exempts educational and religious uses from certain zoning regulations. So as it relates to 6 Arch Street and the application before us, according to guidance from the Attorney General, any nonprofit that engages in educational activities that is using land for training and, quote, preparing persons for activity and usefulness in life, unquote, is exempt from use regulations. So only dimensional regulations apply. The other reference in that ZBA appeal was to our zoning code 200-710, and that is that mixed residential business uses are allowed by right in the central commercial district. And then the final reference was to site plan review and approval. And so just want to refresh everyone of that part of the code. The purpose of site plan review is to ensure that new development conforms to the requirements of the ordinance and is designed in a manner which reasonably protects visual, environmental, and aesthetic qualities. It goes on. I'm just reading a few quotes that I thought were relevant. Site plan may be approved or approved with conditions. If the site plan does not comply with the purposes and requirements of the ordinance, it may be disapproved. And then our code outlines some approval guidelines. So some that I thought were relevant was the use of landscaping to establish buffers between incompatible land uses, ease of access for fire and police, adequate light and air, protection of historic features. So in my an assessment, there's no exterior building or site plan work related to this temporary use. There have been building permits pulled for external work at this site since 2024 that are related to routine maintenance of the building. So there have been building permits pulled for both internal and external work.
Not related to but not related to the housing section, the shelter piece. They were for other things on the building.
Yeah, so there was facade replacement, and some other things, yeah. So
Trenching done for the sprinkler systems that were adequate for the project.
They were necessary
So
because
there
it was
wasn't outside work done
Yeah.
is false, just correcting the record.
correcting the record because it was.
I have pictures of the trench at times.
yeah, so there was
not
external work
compliant
done.
and with no- It said it was not connected to city facilities.
Thank you. We do have,
It required notice.
we have your emails about that, yeah. We lots of,
Well, that's, you're stating it back in, correct? It was
That-
outside work done.
Yes.
It's just hard to hear falsities happening because we paid attention more than you guys.
I think maybe the point is the
Go
work.
ahead, continue. Sorry,
Sorry.
just saying there's outdoor work that was done for this project.
Nobody lives in my neighborhood, so
I guess
they must know.
the distinction would be, is the work that was done general maintenance to keep the building? Well, I guess why don't you guys respond to that?
I'm glad to, what was done was, the building, when it was built in 1989, was built to code, but it was, built out of steel and concrete. And, it was basically about the largest building you could make at that time that didn't have sprinklers. Generally, buildings of this size in current day are sprinklered. So CSO, at various times has determined that it would make sense to sprinkler the building. They had set in motion prior to 2023 to have the entire building sprinklered. And that work was undertaken starting sometime, I believe, in 2023. It was during that time when CSL was looking at alternative locations for housing, including we spent quite a bit of time looking at a parking lot at Wilson's for temporary housing, trailers, et cetera, and doing research on that. It was ultimately determined that that would be not the most comfortable housing for people, not the most advantageous. We looked at locations near Salvation Army, et cetera, for showers, et cetera. And it was determined that because the work was already in progress to sprinkler the entire 6 Arch Street building complex, that because it was fully sprinklered, it would be allowed to have the mixed use, as Ella mentioned, of housing and business, but you'd have to have a building be sprinklered. So that work that was done, and you can't partially sprinkler a building, you'd either do the whole building or none at all. All that work was already in progress, and the work that had to be done, including outside work for pipes, was in progress prior to the design and institution and development of the temporary shelter at the second floor.
Great, so,
Thank you.
thank you. So the original site plan approval, well, there's, even though it's just a change of use, it relates to the site plan, right? Different uses have different potential interventions that you could use at the design level or might have different impacts at a site plan level. So when we received the application in January, we asked for further information about the location of parking, location of waste disposal methods, proposed open space or recreation areas. And that's some of what you saw on that presentation. So based on my review of those materials, which are public, and site visit, I do recommend some conditions for the site plan approval. So the ZBA denied the appeal requesting a special permit and affirmed the use of a site plan. But I do recommend some conditions related to ensuring that it's a temporary use, so extending it only to August 2026, as that application specifies, better delineating that or outdoor smoking area. I think that could be done through some temporary transparent fencing, no hot greater than 4 feet, but really demarcating that area and investing in it a little bit to improve the aesthetics. I would also,
That would be on a
That's on the
railroad.
railroad right
They
of
wouldn't be
way.
able to do that condition.
It's on the plans that were
You look
submitted.
at the maps.
You guys, please. Thank you. Got
It's
it.
pointless to keep going. You can't put.
I had your chance, and we're gonna have our chance, and I'm gonna give you another chance again, okay?
Well, you're gonna forget, I'm gonna forget all these things because there's.
I'm sorry, this is how the meeting works. We each take our turns.
another recommended condition from the planning department is a monthly report to the planning board on the educational services that were provided during the previous month to cover the next 4 months, what educational services were provided. And then providing a notice to all parents of youth attending the All Stars Therapeutic Day services. So based on an allegation and concerns raised by the public, noticing all parents of youth at that after-school program that a temporary shelter is co-located at Six Arch. So there were other considerations raised in public comment, having to do with storage of hazardous chemicals, ease of access for fire and emergency, stormwater drainage, increased demand on public utilities, including sewer, public safety, and wetlands impacts. We didn't meet across departments to review those concerns. There are memos provided by, and this packet is thick, so memos provided by DPW. Would be happy to walk through that, although it speaks for itself. The building commissioner, there are some conditions recommended by the building commissioner, Mr. Snow. A memo from the fire department, to which CSO responded this morning. And in my assessment, there's no recommended conditions. The Greenfield Health Department, the conservation agent or conservation commission. And that's it. And then I asked numerous follow-up questions based on public comment and concerns that were raised. Be happy to walk through CSO's responses to those comments. It didn't change any of those recommended conditions. There's also an allegation of CSO not having clear title to the land. So we pursued that, and I have a response from the assessing office that they do.
I'm sorry, can you clarify? Because I see when I do the deed trace, I see no purchase agreement between the 50-foot right of way that is granted to the railroad, which I complained back when they expanded the railroad, the Amtrak service. So that is not their land.
If you look at all their parking.
That is not
property,
their.
they don't have adequate parking.
Thank you.
No fencing, there's a trail for.
And they just purchased the family easement from Alan Constantine, the other
Right
person
next
that
to it.
spoke at the zoning board of appeals meeting. I'm wondering if they're gonna take that off our tax rolls too.
So Ella, you said that there was some conditions amongst the letters from so you had some conditions recommended, Mark Snow had some conditions. Others did not, but everyone investigated. There were multiple site visits that happened from some of these department representatives. So I think that the concerns were responded to, addressed. I don't think people were denying that some of these things are happening. But they did not attribute it to this particular use in this particular building.
That is
So
for
you-
a court to determine.
Not
I
for
imagine.
you, you guys don't have the authority.
You don't have the expertise or the.
We know you're gonna allow this, can I speak now and then I'll leave?
Yeah,
Okay, so I know you're gonna allow this, I know this is going to be allowed, we understand that.
self-created
It was-
financial hardship.
Yeah, you can't claim a self-created financial hardship. You said I can't hold it in any longer, and it's gonna take so long. I live next there. I know what goes on. I've told you guys before, this is not an educational facility. You see these people come up here and say, I have emailed the EHOLC, asked for all their records. I spend hours and hours every day doing this. There is not one documentation besides coming out of these people's mouths that they provide education. Where is you guys' documentation of this is the program we can provide? How about you guys come down and check out your program? And I promise you, that is not happening either, because I talk to the people in the street too. And I know these people. I smoke weed with them. I've smoked crack when I flipped up at them. And I got it from somebody who lived inside their place. And this isn't a lie. This is embarrassing to say that. But I'm telling you, the person went inside CSO to grab me my crack and bring it out. I currently have a friend and a kid that I'm helping that stores his beer. He has a terrible alcohol problem. Stores his beer in their lockers that we provided with my sidewalk grants. Like I've looked at every detail of this for you guys to be able to determine that they are an educational facility. You don't know if they are or if they're not. You don't have the education for that. That's for a judge to decide. What you're hearing is two attorneys' opinions on law. Then it goes to a judge to decide. But we're poor as fuck and we live on Chapman Street. So I can't afford these damn lawyers. But I'm telling you for a fact, if it came in front of a judge and I didn't get screwed over a 1-day violation because the clerk was out, that this would be solved in a courtroom. But I'm too poor for that. So I'm just begging you guys to realize what this has happened. I was trafficked over to California That's why I'm so passionate about this. I went to California in rehab. My friend got paid $5,000. I was on fake insurance. I know about the scams. They have a daycare facility in the place that I live right next door. I walk because I'm a welfare recipient loser trying to get my life back. I've never seen a kid in there. Not once. And how are you housing kids in the same thing where you're paroling sex offenders to, and you have paint chemicals in the same building? This is crazy what you boards do. None of it is compliant. And then the parking is all on railroad easement. There's no fence to protect people. You're coming out of a mental health facility. I just canceled my counseling with them because I'm so upset of it. I had a great counselor with CSO, actually providing me good counseling, but because I couldn't walk in the building and smell the mold anymore and know the freaking problems that are going on in that building, and that I had to cancel this week. I've gotten 3 calls from CSO because this meeting came up and it's made me so distraught. You want to call about feelings? How much I've been disenfranchised by these boards. This could have been done the right way. And you heard them. They have no plan because they know it'll just weigh on your hearts. You guys have no documentation of education facility. They promised they'd be out of there in 16 months. They're still here with no plan. If they promise to be out of there in 16 months and they have no plan,
Then they got to grandfather it in.
what do they just tell you what to do? Now the boss of my town is CSO?
Okay, thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Can I make a statement?
Good.
They don't help me, believe it.
Well,
That's the sad part. They enable people to keep them on drugs.
before you go,
Harm
before you go, I have a question I want to ask both of you. What do you want to be done?
I don't know.
What do you-
That's
They can pay the fines, been out of compliance to give our city the money back that they
Yeah.
take from our
They
city.
haven't been,
From the smaller organizations, you guys take the money from?
Stephanie, I asked you a question.
What do we want?
They haven't been-
Pay the fines, $400 a day, like I said,
What do
when
you
they
want done?
violated the site plan
At this
approval.
point, I don't want a bunch of
Approval
homeless
on
Can I-
January 4th,
Stephanie.
2024, not when they took
Go.
occupancy.
Stop it. Even go. You go. What could we ask to be done at this
Let me
point?
finish. They haven't
have
been
no
shown to be
plan.
out of compliance. Okay, they haven't been shown to. This is-
That's because there's nobody coming out, and I have emails saying that they're not gonna enforce the code.
Stop. He's giving you an opportunity.
Can I-
Get out of the room. Please.
Oh,
Do this.
That's what pop.
Yes, I would like to do.
So, my question is, we don't have any evidence of non-compliance. We don't have any evidence of that,
Do
okay?
you have any
Let me
education?
finish.
Education?
Let me finish. So the board is here at a certain point in time. We don't have anything right now in front of us that shows they're non-compliant. So we can't do anything about that. We don't have anything, Stephanie. So my question to you is,
That's
what is your what would your resolution be?
Well, I'll.
They're not gonna leave.
They are out
To
of
start-
compliance with our
To
code.
start, there's no
That's what we
sidewalk.
do.
No one says that. We don't have
To
any.
start, there's no sidewalks. When I used to
They're
walk
looking
in
at the
there,
second
can
floor,
you please
talking
stop?
about the first.
When I walked in there to go to counseling, there's no sidewalk to even walk into the place. You have to walk into oncoming traffic.
There's no sidewalks in my neighborhood either.
No, to get
No,
into a
it is.
business that's supposed to be compliant, ADA compliant, a state-funded GNO building, you can't even get into there. Most of their clients don't have cars. So you're telling me you don't have a car, but you can walk through a driveway to get in? Maybe some type of sidewalks to get in there? Maybe a fence to stop maybe people from going up to the railroad tracks? That there's a path from CSO's property through the trails that all the homeless people take. You think homeless people should just be walking from one facility with no easement? Everywhere else in town has a blockade. Nowhere does. And do you think that railroad parking, that's my property. That's my easement before it's anyone. If you can actually chase deeds back and know how to do it like a planning board should, that is my easement. I don't want anyone parking on me. That's out of compliance. No one's protecting my easements, but I know you're not going to do that. But just the next guy that comes here and the little guy, you know what I really want? The next guy, I don't want him to look at him pompous. Look at him
Asking
nicely.
a question.
No, it's a pain in the ass. I'm a pain in the ass.
Would
Would you
you want
just
it
do
in
your job next
your
time?
backyard?
Just-
Would you?
What I want from you guys is to
personally,
do your
Victor,
job. That's it.
Want it in your backyard? If you want it in your backyard, leave their option. You don't have an option right after, you not comply with the laws anymore.
We won't stop.
Leave your
I won't.
addresses
I've
for
contacted
anybody who
DOJ,
wants
the
to
next
extend it
FBI.
in their
That little
backyard.
all-stars program you got, you
Yeah.
gotta clean up the
Ignore the
paperwork
law.
on it.
You know what the code is. You know what it is. Jeff.
Giglio's talking
You know
to
what
me.
it is.
We got people in
Your
Boston too,
license.
here about your little
Your
Boston.
license.
Talk, thank you for sharing.
You never mind you.
Didn't get my answer though.
You're making.
Question.
Yeah, do you mind if we?
Oh, I'm sorry, sure, go
Can
ahead.
I just, yeah, I just want to say that I followed the zoning board of appeal pretty closely. And I thought that David Singer did a great job and Stephanie presented, CSO presented, they brought in their lawyer, all kinds of things. And I remember him saying, and I know for a fact it's not just Stephanie, there are other people, like when your toilet doesn't flush and I'm at their house and I'm like, what's up with that? And it has to do with the trenching and the whatever and the flooding. So, they're not making this stuff up. And as a friend, I have been in there and unable to use the facilities. But I remember David Singer, when this was all denied and they brought their evidence, saying that there are some very unhappy abutters, and it would be really good if we could have a sense of community between CSO, Arch Street, and the neighbors that are affected by this. And that's what I think needs to happen. It's like, I don't know how that can happen because you can hear the angst and the anger. But, she's the one that knows and has documents. I just know what I've seen and what I've heard, and people were going back and forth and up and down. So I just wanted to validate some of the things when someone has been living in the neighborhood for that long. And then I know that the police were in their face about them putting up the crime scene tape and having to justify this is actually our property, not for somebody else to come and paint lines. So I just, as a person that saw some of this going on and attended live the ZBA meetings, I just wanted to say, in terms of that, I don't know how you can kiss and make up, in other words, but something has to happen. And Susan is right. Oversight doesn't belong here, but a site plan is a site plan, and the regs are the regs, and the ordinance says this, and the zoning says this, and the regulations. But that's what I think these people are looking for.
Sure.
So and I can understand if they say, "Oh, we don't know what it's going to be," but I don't feel, and I can tell you the last thing is, I was testifying at the State House at the same time CSO was testifying. Originally, a long time ago, a few years ago, 2 social workers for more than 45 people. It was disgusting. And so who's on food stamp and are you on a waiting list? Has anybody helped you? So CSO had said to the State House, they hired 2 or hired 3 more, just quit, but they are hiring. So we all know that a whole lot of services need to be operating well, doing a good job, plenty of people to help with all of the different issues for everybody. So that's the kind of thing, I'm just coming full circle to what I hope is going to happen. Because I think there's a lot of stuff that can be corrected, whether some of it doesn't belong at the planning board, I get it.
Sure.
Somebody needs to do something. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I want to acknowledge the level of effort that the city made to respond to lots of very thorough comments from the community. I mean, we defer to the department heads, like the fire department, to tell us if there's fire activity. I mean, we're not experts in that, we know that, but the city does have experts in these things. And we asked them very specific questions, inspired in part by the comments we got from the public, from Stephanie and Ryan in particular. And we got thoughtful responses back. So I think that their concerns are being respected and responded to. And I get that they're frustrated, but we also have limits in our jurisdiction, what we can do. So I think we're all on the same page. We want to live in a good community. We're doing our best to be responsive in the process we have in front of us too.
Thank you. I respect that. I mean, we all know it's a matter of purview. Who's in charge of what? Thank you.
Thank you for coming. All right. Did you covered everything that you and your colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, it was high level. I didn't go into any of the substance
Yeah.
of the
I read these very
complaints
carefully myself.
or responses. I'd be happy to if anyone has questions.
We read them all.
Yeah. Were you familiar with? Yeah.
I read them.
I myself was trying to understand all these. There's a lot of issues in play here. So
I had one question on the presentation you made, Ella, which was that you said we can approve with conditions, or then you said it can be denied if what?
So the code reads, if the site, The site plan may be approved or approved with conditions. Before approval of a site plan, the reviewing authority may request the applicant to make modifications in the proposed design of the project. If the site plan does not comply with the purposes and requirements of this ordinance, it may be disapproved. If disapproved, the plan may be revised and resubmitted without prejudice. Failure of any of the reviewing authorities to act on a site plan within the required time period shall constitute approval.
Wasn't sure if when you said that if it was not approved, is it by the administrator or not approved by the plan? Does the planning board have the ability to disapprove a site plan?
That's my understanding,
Yeah.
yes. To disapprove, it's different than deny.
To disapprove, is different.
Yeah, if disapproved, the plan may be revised and resubmitted without prejudice.
I see. And then if we don't act in a certain amount of time, it becomes approved. I mean, it strikes me that there is many issues that have been raised around this site. And I agree with you, Jeff, that they were fairly thoroughly evaluated. But very little of this is actually under the purview of planning board. And the use issues are all out of our jurisdiction. We are told it either in use or it is not, and we can't really even act on this if it's not a valid use. And that has been thoroughly vetted by the Board of Appeals. So if there are continue to be issues about that, it's certainly not relative to the site plan. So, I just don't see a lot of site plan issues here outside of the fencing proposal. I myself am not particularly comfortable asking for training, evidence of training, which is really trying to determine whether they're use compliant, which is not our job. And I'd ask if the board has ever asked for that, because it feels like we're getting into use, and that's really the Board of Appeals concern, not ours. We have to presume the use is valid if you tell us it is. It's not our job to then ask for more information about that, I don't believe. So that condition, I'm not so comfortable with. The rest I'm fine with.
But it sounds like there are a lot of issues regarding how the place is being used.
There are.
So someone needs to, if we can't put the conditions on for that, for example, whatever we decide those conditions may be with education or whatever, some of your things about notifying people, things of that nature, who does it? If it's not us, who does?
Board of Appeals or the city.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I know that you took comments from people who certainly are not in a position of authority over what we do. And I mean, I'm the CEO. If you'd like to know what we do at that site and what the services are, I'm happy to talk to that. I'm happy to invite people in to take a tour to see things. I mean, we are a heavily, heavily regulated organization. We have to meet state licensing. We have to meet contractor oversight. They come out every 6 months or so. We publicly, competitively bid on these services. Our reputation is at stake for what we do, and we invest in our communities so that they're stronger places. It is incredibly hard to sit here and frankly feel a little bit slandered and threatened. And then hear that there are serious questions for what we do. Jane lives it every single day. She's there. I live it every single day. Jane lives in this community. We have staff who are so committed to this population, to helping them be self-sufficient, to making sure that they can have a better life. Is everybody going to agree with what we do? Obviously not. But to add truth because it was stated by two people who are angry at us, who have no interest in finding peace whatsoever, is really difficult. So I appreciate the chance to speak to that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but there is not a question of the use of what we are doing there. We are meeting our mission. We are meeting our funding guidelines. And believe me, we are 24 hours a day providing support for people to become self-sufficient.
Thank you. I think I personally don't have a doubt.
There is a hand up, so.
Well, let's
Yeah.
on first here. I also don't have, I mean, I think I'm with Tom that most, if you just add up the number of comments we got, the number of concerns, most of them were not the programming. It was the stormwater, the pervious surface, the backups in the sewer system, those sorts of things too. So that's, when I say there's a lot of concerns and experiences, that's, I guess, what I was.
Yeah, no,
really
I
referring to.
appreciate that, but I think they're, yeah.
I heard what you heard. We've heard that before.
Yep.
I mean, it's a democracy that people have a chance to speak.
Absolutely. I just
But thank you for,
wanted to have our chance too.
of course.
Yeah,
thank you.
and I would say, I know you're highly regulated, and I know we are not the right organization to determine whether you are conducting educational activities on site. I think this question has been looked at quite thoroughly. And I know you're regulated regularly, so I don't take that lightly. And so it just feels inappropriate. It feels like it's performative for us to ask for this. We're not going to do anything with it, and it's honestly out of our purview completely. And there are others who are way more informed who are asking these questions of you. Why should we, when it's out of our purview? So, but I totally agree with you, Jeff. There are a lot of real issues here, but they're about the site and the neighborhood, and it has nothing really to do with what's in front of us for the site plan review, which isn't being altered.
Based on what we've been told by multiple engineers and experts who looked into it.
Right.
I would just want to say, we'll do a little more comment. We're not just going to open it up every.
Yeah.
Should we, before we open it back up for comment again, I guess, well,
Oh, that's a comment, then we can talk some more.
okay. All right, Susan, and then the person.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I think there are two pieces here. One is, can the use that's been done for the last year or so continue on for the next 6-7 months, whatever that is? And the other question is, there are drainage issues, et cetera, that you were just talking about. Can that be looked at separately? And especially since there will be a new use for this building coming in after August, that is part of the discussion that occurs for that new use. I am just very concerned that we not totally disrupt the ability of our community to be able to serve our unhoused neighbors right now, at a time when we're seeing more evictions and we're seeing more issues coming up. And so that is my big concern. And I just wanted to try to separate those two things out, because I think there are legitimate questions about drainage and water, et cetera, that need to be dealt with, but those are separate from the questions of how, of this site plan being extended for the next few months. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. One other person, owner?
Yes, good evening. My name is Mark Snow, Building Commissioner for the City of Greenfield. I would just like to make a clarification in regards to work that is proposed for this particular property. There is currently a permit application for some interior renovations of the second floor outside the shelter area. So my understanding is that the work that they're proposing under the permit that's in my office is not related directly with the shelter. And I just wanted people to be aware of that, because it was stated earlier that there was no proposed work, interior or exterior. And maybe Mr. Dole could explain a little bit if you had further questions on that work and what it's related to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That's helpful. Do you want to just?
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, so there's, the clarification should be that there's no further work planned related to the shelter. And I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
What is being done is, at the north end of the second floor, there's 4 rooms that have temporary walls that were built in 1989, thin metal walls, part of the CSO crisis program. And they put forth plans to build insulated walls that will provide better, separation for counseling, but basically rebuilding the exact same 3 rooms with walls. So again, I don't think there was ever any intention to say there was no work overall happening at the site, but there was no work at all related to the shelter. That's what the intention was. It's a large building. It's got Sherwin-Williams. It's got, it's a large
Yeah,
project.
and I think our purview is if there are modifications relative to what's being presented for site plan review. That's
Right.
really all we can.
And that's all, and the entire thing is only about the temporary shelter.
Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, where were we?
So there's obviously concerns, right? Let's talk about site work, site condition concerns. Let's ignore the education and the use and possible, whatever the allegations are regarding the shelter internally. But externally, we all agree that there are things outside that are problem. So how do we resolve that? And how do we get some kind of satisfaction? Can we require them to have an independent engineering firm evaluate these things and say, well, I don't know if you have to have a fence in front of a railroad easement or not, I don't know if that's a requirement or not. So, asking for a fence might be a safe thing to do, and since you've got indigent people or whatever wandering back and forth across the tracks, you would probably don't want that. Access sounds like another valid thing. Having a sidewalk to get to it instead of walking down an active driveway, that seems kind of an inappropriate thing. So drainage, I don't know anything about the drainage. I saw something where she said it was caused by a clogged manhole, and that was disproved. There's lots of things that were said and not said, but obviously the neighbors are seeing these issues. So can we require that? Can we say the condition is an independent? We want an independent firm to evaluate drainage, to evaluate site conditions, to evaluate ADA compliance with access and things like that. Is that a condition, as a reasonable condition? Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, I think that the other.
Because the building's going to be used afterwards. So when the clinic goes, it's still going to be used, the building's still going to exist, the problem is still going to exist.
Yeah.
So, but now's our opportunity to get those.
I guess the one comment I would make is I don't think this is not necessarily an opportunity to fix all those things just because we have the floor. We're extending something that was already approved.
Yeah.
So to decide we have totally different criteria this time, even though none of us were on the board at the time when it was approved, except George, who recused himself. I personally think that we need to limit how far we reach into the things we think we can regulate, because they haven't changed anything since the last.
But it goes to that good neighbor thing. It kind of shows a good faith effort to try and resolve the things
But that might not
with the neighbors. Because the conditions are going to exist. So when the clinic moves, the conditions are still going to exist.
I mean, okay, yeah, I think.
Could I say something?
Sure.
Again, I think most of the issues around sewer and stormwater are town easement on the properties and town DPW infrastructure. That's something that the city should talk with the DPW, with grants, and determine what they can do to improve things. It's pretty much irrelevant to the actual building. It's been there since 1989, fully occupied.
The problems have been there since 1989.
Correct. And there are things that need to be improved. And ultimately, they're town infrastructure, city of Greenfield infrastructure. So I think that's what should be looked at.
Yes, Mark, can you comment on that?
I'd be happy to review the DPW.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's, because this would be DPW, not building.
Well,
why don't we start with the memo from DPW? Because these questions were addressed directly by them.
Yeah, so in response to, I can go line by line by the public comments. So there's an allegation of a sinkhole, a drain directly in front of the doorway of the All Stars daycare where there were repeated sinkholes. So DPW did acknowledge that there was a catch basin failing there, meaning that a few bricks fell into the catch basin below ground level. The probable cause of the structural failure of the catch basin could have been the water main break on Arch Street in 2021. No work occurring at 6 Arch Street would have caused this failure. There was an allegation of a illegally blocked culvert across the street. And the DPW writes, the Maplebrook culvert has not been illegally or intentionally blocked by anyone or any party. Allegation, an interior inspection would indicate that the sewer drain located inside Sherwin-Williams was blocked. The DPW responded that last week, the assistant engineer of the DPW went to Sherwin-Williams to inspect that sewer manhole inside the building. The manager of Sherwin Williams showed the engineer where in the floor it was located. It's not visible. It was sealed up. That manhole and pipes have not been blocked or altered. And then I asked, based on my understanding of the comments and concerns raised, is there any connection to the culvert from 6 Arch? And the DPW responded, there's no direct connection to the Maplebrook culvert within the building. There are 5 catch basins on the property and the parking lots that drain surface water or stormwater. I asked, are there any impacts on stormwater? From my perspective as a planner, there's no change in impermeable surface. You know, if they were expanding the parking lot, there certainly would be, but they're not. DPW responded, there are no impacts on stormwater within or surrounding the property. And then I asked about any increase in demand on the sewer system because there were concerns about that. And, you know, very concerning photos of sewage inside of residents in the neighborhood. And the DPW responded, 45 individuals are not going to increase the demand on the 24-inch sewer main that services 6 Arch Street. These 45 individuals could be anywhere in the city and not impact the sewer system. So my understanding is there's definitely flooding issues.
Yeah,
and
no one's saying
sewer
there's any
issues.
flooding, but, you know, according to DPW, there's no problem.
Well, there was a catch basin that failed.
Well, but that was because of a water main break, you know, on the street. So according to the DPW, there's no problem. So, I mean, we're right back where we were. I know people are asking.
I don't hear enough of an issue to tie to the site plan to do further exploration of this issue. If it needs it, the city should do it. It sounds like it's been very much brought to the city's attention now. So I hope we can look at it, but it really sounds like it's a complicated city sewage issue that to put it on this one applicant, particularly for a 6-month extension, to kind of help us sort that out, just feels like overreach to me.
I agree. They're not exacerbating these problems. They're not causing these problems. They don't own the infrastructure that's problematic.
Right.
So,
but there are problems there. It doesn't mean that there are no issues. It's just, it doesn't feel like the cause is this property per se.
I mean, if they were scraping the site and building an entirely new building, then all bets are off. We should fix as much as we can within their property lines and within the things that they own and control. But I think some of what we're talking about is we're trying to, just as a longer term project, understand what our range of authority is, what are the sorts of things we can ask of people. And then also, of course, what's appropriate for a given situation, but just in general, like sometimes I think we can ask for an engineering study if it's related, if it's, you know, commensurate with the scope of the work that's being done, and we have concerns about the engineering plan that they have because they're changing everything about the slopes or the drainage, but they're not touching any of that stuff. So
No, I agree. It doesn't sound like they're having any impact at all, but again, they're the neighbors, right? They're the other side of the neighbors. So we think we want to solve this problem. Someone needs to identify it, and we keep pushing it on somebody else.
But they're not going to.
It's you, it's not you, it's you, it's not you. So
study is not solved.
Well, yeah, I guess
it's solve it, make it identify.
Hypothetically, if we required them to hire an engineer, the work wouldn't be done, the engineering wouldn't be done before August, and they wouldn't pay to do the work because it's going to be an excessively expensive.
But maybe would identify the.
I think we know what the problems are. So
we don't know the problems, but DPW says there's no problems.
I don't think they said it. They didn't deny that it's flooding. They didn't say it's. They said it's not been intentionally blocked. They didn't say it's.
I didn't hear them mention anything about flooding on that street.
And we can ask that question maybe separately, but to keep it within the realm of what we're responsible for in this case, I think it's been helpful to clarify of the problems that are in this neighborhood, many of which are real, which ones are related to this site plan application, which ones are related to other things that ought to be fixed through the proper channels. That said, the good neighbor, I share the idea that CSO should be a good neighbor. And I think they have a commitment. They've stated commitments to do that. I think some of the conditions that Ella recommended are in the spirit of improving some of the outdoor recreation spaces.
Well, at least making sure there's pedestrian access to the site without going down a driveway.
And you can do that in ways that are, 4-month temporary solutions too. So I think.
But even as a permit, they're still going to have these services there. These clinics are still going to remain. The building's not going away.
You guys want to say something?
Yeah, we're unaware of what that is alleging. So there are sidewalks all in front of the building. We are ADA compliant. We have wheelchair ramps in. Our licensure requires us to be ADA compliant. So I have no idea what the allegation about not being accessible is and ADA non-compliance.
And
And the architect who we work with for.
The claim was that people had to walk down the driveway.
Down the driveway to get into the site.
Long sidewalk, like, the entire front of the building.
You if you park your car across from our building, you cross the parking lot like everybody else would do to pull sidewalk there.
But
There's a
what if you
curb cut
walk-
if
If you walk to the site, how do you get access to the site walking?
It's the same as going into Sherwin-Williams, like you would go off the sidewalk right into Sherwin-Williams, right by the side, down the side of the building, up the sidewalk. You got ramps.
Yeah, I will say that our new project that we're doing at 60 Wells, that Randy has been involved with as well. We spent much time with the DPW coordinating on stormwater drainage. We dealt with some questionable pavement by Greenfield Chevrolet that paved over an entire lot and caused water onto our lot. We had to deal with that. We coordinated with the DPW. We brought shoring down to allow our building to be stepped footings down to the 28 feet below. So this was again with Eric Tworog and the entire DPW team, including his brother, so that in the future, if work had to be done 28 feet down by the city to deal with rebuilding any of those culverts that are in easement, it would not undermine our building. So that was coordination that caused extensive delays. And the new building and the new project is designed both to have complete sidewalks from Wells Street, from Main Street down to the property, walkways for clients all the way onto the property, and is designed for that. Again, what we're doing here is a temporary shelter, hoping to get out of it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And the new shelter will be fully set to do that, but it's.
But well before the shelter was there, we're a mental health clinic and we have our programs there. We've been there since 2004. We bought the property. When we bought the property, it was actually a state operated building. So DTA was there, Department of Children and Families was there, Social Security Office was there. And we haven't changed a thing about access.
Everybody that needs access.
Everybody who needs access and that was allowed. So we merely have just.
Can I ask you one
That, so
question?
I'm not sure if people are accessing via the railroad tracks, they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But that's not our,
The entire
that's not
west
our
side of the
property.
building at the first floor is a covered atrium walkway.
Can I ask you a question about the recommendation to better screen the smoking area? What your thoughts are about that?
Yeah.
We're trying not to encourage smoking, so if we screen it and furnish it, then you're encouraging smoking, so that kind of flies in the face what they're doing.
But I mean, if you want barriers or something that does a better barrier, whether they're.
If you look at the picture, it's just three
or something.
mismatched plastic chairs. And I,
Like it the way.
Right, so that's.
Sorry, the guests like it, but.
We can say that the chairs are not supplied by us. They are chairs that we frequently remove because we are not encouraging people to stay there. So the chairs are not by nature placed by CSO.
They're not matched.
It would
Yeah.
look better.
If we had an outdoor seating area, if we were intending for people to sit at this, in the smoking area, it would be replicate that same, uniformed seating configuration.
Yeah.
We put up
Maybe
these
with us
smoking
leaving
pole with the receptacles and.
And as a policy, our entire agency is actually smoke free. So we made a temporary exception to allow people to smoke because we didn't want them walking up to neighbor yards and going into places where they should be. So that is why we put the temporary spot. But the reason we haven't invested a lot in making a nice smoking area is because we are a smoke free agency with a smoking policy.
I heard that.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion to recommend approval of the site. If we're ready to continue.
He hasn't said anything.
yeah, do we have any other,
Say, Pete?
or do you just want to say second?
No, well, I can also do that, but if Tom wants to make the motion, I will second it, and then I'll have a couple comments.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the site plan, with the only condition being the 6 month or the
4 month,
the 4 month.
the only condition.
I mean, I think the other condition was the smoking one. Was there another one?
And there were
It's probably
recommendations
crazy.
from Mr. Snow.
I just think maybe not do anything with the smoking for 6 months. It doesn't seem.
I'll read them all aloud. So 1, inquire whether there have been or are any planned changes to the current operations and services at the temporary shelter.
If you've asked that.
2, consider imposing a condition that no changes or alterations to the current operations and services are allowed without first obtaining approval. 3, consider a condition requiring that once this site plan approval expires, any future use of this space must receive approval from the appropriate city departments prior to occupancy.
And can I ask, is that different than what we just did? Or,
Is he still on?
yeah, Mark, is the condition requiring that once this site plan approval expires, any future use of the space must receive approval from the appropriate city departments? Is that basically doing what we did this time and asking departments if they have concerns, or is that a more extensive process?
Wanted to clarify, if the extension is granted, I just wanted to clarify any future use after the shelter, that approvals prior to any other occupancy in there must receive prior approval. And again, the certificate of occupancy, once that ends, then legally that section of the building cannot be occupied legally until a new use is granted an occupancy permit.
Understood.
And then a new site plan would have to be submitted.
Well, maybe not a new site plan if they just do a by right, they use it for an office space or something.
It's office or professional space, it's by right, they don't need any site plan.
Yeah, so it's not a guarantee that there would be another site plan review. It depends on what they do with it.
Right, but they would need to go for permits and all those sorts of.
Yeah, which is normal.
But they already know.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to put that as a condition.
Can I just ask you guys, is that, from your perspective, is that a customary?
Very customary.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work often with Mark.
Sure.
With the
Yeah, okay.
building department.
Anything else?
Okay, that was 3. Number 4, inform the applicant that once the temporary certificate of occupancy expires, the space cannot be occupied legally without first obtaining a new certificate of occupancy from the inspections department.
Consider that done, it's on the record now.
5, inquire whether any agreements exist between CSO and adjoining property owners for additional parking spaces. 6, inquire if there is a designated smoking area for the shelter and verify that its location is acceptable.
We talked about that.
Is there a parking issue?
Didn't come up, other than that they think it's on right of way property. Don't know how you can prove that. Again, don't study it, we don't know.
I didn't receive any public comments about that. From my site visit, it seems that the parking lot is pretty fully occupied on 3 site visits during the workday. And I have heard that there are easements. There are legal easements to use parking on other
What
land
is a typical
outside
railroad?
of Sunset.
What is a typical railroad easement? Either side of a railroad track, what's their easement? 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet?
I don't know. Depends on. I would.
Is that?
50
that's
rods,
an issue.
50 feet.
50 feet on either side or 50 feet from the center?
50 feet from the center pin. Already contacted the DOT on this matter, and the DOT is my abutter, and a guy came out and told us that that was the land. That's why I'm just not claiming it. The DOT, a friend of Stephanie's, a guy came out from the DOT and told me where the easements were, showed me where mine were on the railroad property with his GPS locator, and showed me that all of that back parking along the railroad is on their property too. 50 feet from the center pin. That's what the railroad says. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
They may have an agreement, that there may be an existing agreement with the railroad.
I'm not aware it
From
could
the
be.
original owner. Is there, we know from the original owner if that was,
I'm not aware of any. Didn't research it.
So one question Tom had was, to the extent that some of these conditions are just the law anyway, which of these do we think we need to be explicit about versus just it's how Mark is going to operate? We sort of know how that's going to go.
I mean, if he's still on the line, I would defer to him. I think 1, 5, and 6 are about inquiring. I think
Yeah.
we did that.
Okay.
4 is informing. 2 and 3 are specifically about conditions. I think you can duplicate the law, but it does seem like to be compliant with the law, they would need to obtain approval.
Mark, I guess the question for you still there is, are the conditions you're recommending different than what they'd have to comply with anyway? Is this just clarifying what the process would be, making it explicit that they are going to have to go through these steps? Or is there something unique about the way you're recommending here that might be a little different than?
It's just to clarify.
Okay.
If the board decides that there could be issues in the future after this use site plan expires, then this would just be another way to enforce. But I'm not anticipating any problems. I don't have any concerns. However, I do like to have conditions be clear and enforceable when a board or commission imposes conditions. So,
Maybe we just say our conditions, as per the letter provided by Mark Stone, we make sure they get a copy.
Some of these things
Instead of spelling them out,
we've
No,
already
but
done.
instead of,
I've made the motion. The motion I'm comfortable with is extending this to August of 2026. And that is the condition. I haven't heard of anything else.
The other one, Ellie, you were suggesting improvements to the outdoor seating area too, not just the smoking areas.
That's a miscommunication. It was the 3 chairs in the middle.
Oh, that's what you're referring to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And I think we're gonna let that one.
okay, understood.
they're not provided in the middle.
Okay, so,
So simple.
I will
Go ahead.
second Tom's motion.
okay, so just the first condition. Okay, now discussion. Peter, you said you had some comments?
Yeah, so a variety of thoughts on the project. I want to say that I am understanding and sympathetic to Stephanie and Ryan's comments about the conditions in that area in relation to the flooding, at least from the stormwater. I thought that Ian's reply from the DPW was pretty thorough, but I have personally witnessed stormwater flooding during storms. I've responded to vehicles stuck underneath the bridge there. So I would certainly acknowledge that condition exists. My in-laws live around the corner from there, so I'm very familiar with the sewage issues in that neighborhood. But in agreement with some of the other members on this board, although those conditions exist, I don't necessarily think that they are related specifically to this project or a condition that could be made fairly upon the applicant to correct what could be seen as a city of Greenfield infrastructure issue. But I did at the very least want to publicly acknowledge that, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from. Personally, I don't see that that's a CSO problem, but it is definitely a problem that should be addressed. Citizens should have the right to be able to flush a toilet and know that the water goes away without there being other issues related to that. So I understand their concern. As far as the applicant goes, I'd like to offer some thanks to Ella for all of the back and forth on the outreach to the various departments and the back and forth on site conditions and verification. And there was a lot of documents that we got. So with that, I am comfortable with supporting the extension until August.
Peter, I appreciate your second and also your comments acknowledging the real issues that people in that neighborhood are facing. And my, recommendation to extend this certainly is not made without acknowledging the challenges are there. It's just, it's not probably for this project to solve, but if I live there, I'd want to solve too. So, I can appreciate people being frustrated and angry about it. So I don't want to, I'm not being blithe about that and acting like that's not an issue, but I think it makes sense to extend this for 6 months and hope that the city can work on it 4 months. So, but thank you for those comments, Peter. I echo them.
Any comments?
No, I'm done. I agree. I think we got problems that we need to resolve. I was hoping to be able to help to resolve them, but
Okay,
someone else's job.
for our job next time. Yeah, with the right opportunity. Okay, then we'll have a vote. All in, we need to go roll call.
Roll call.
In response to the motion that
Yeah, call the name and then they say.
Tom made with the one, so to approve the site plan.
With the condition that it's temporary and will end in August.
On August 17th, 2026, to be specific. That's what they asked for, so. Okay, let's go around the room.
I support the motion.
Big Michelle, I guess.
Peter?
Peter McIvory, yes.
And Jeff Sauer, yes. Okay. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you. For agenda item? Yeah. Maybe this is not necessary because Ella said she didn't read everything. There's a section in here where, which is fine, except this, the purpose of the site plan review and approval is to ensure that the new development conforms to the requirements of Greenfield zoning and is designed in a manner which reasonably protects the visual, environmental, and aesthetic qualities of the neighborhood. There shouldn't there be something in there about the character as well? Saying, you know, if you got a neighborhood that's lots of kids and families playing around, you really want to stick a prison in it. You know, it may look nice, it may work nice, it may be nice, but does it fit the character? Shouldn't there be something there about?
Wait, is that our thing again?
It's our thing.
It's, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a use question and.
You know, but it's part of our zoning code, so I'm just thinking, making a suggestion that this section of the zoning code might want to consider something about how you're affecting the character of the neighborhood as well, not just the visual, environmental, and aesthetics. Because you could build a beautiful prison with nice trees and solar panels, but it's, you know, across the street from the family neighborhood.
Character's a tricky thing.
Yeah, well,
But
so the site plan review is not about use, but if you wanted to add the words character, that would be a zoning amendment. That's within the prerogative of the planning board.
no, again, when you go to a site plan review, you can look at that as well. I'm not talking about use as far as necessarily prohibiting the use, but saying, is that really the right use that's in there? And do we need to look at our use tables or something?
Sure.
Shouldn't character be part? I don't know, just.
I think it's something it's our prerogative to reevaluate now and
I mean,
then.
it's been an interesting question to try to get our head around site plan review and what does it allow us to do and to consider and what it does it not. And I reviewed the meeting and I thought it was a really good conversation at the last meeting about it. Because I know that we've struggled with this question a number of times that, can we impose that? We don't know. We can ask. If they agreed, great. If they didn't agree, could we have said you have to? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's just,
so they kind of get all that clear.
yeah, and so to stick with the agenda, that's not on the agenda, but
Yes.
that's the conversation we're having next.
This is for next, this is something for next.
Yeah. Waiting for something or you?
No, I just was asked to attend today, and I think primarily because of the earlier matter involving TSO, so.
That's correct. Yeah, thank
Which
you.
is resolved, so I think it was resolved very well in terms of you went through the correct process, so. And Gordon Quinn, for the city.
Oh, hi, Gordon. I've not met you before. Thank you.
No, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole question about site plan and what are the parameters? is
A lot of communities facing the same questions. It's a challenge, you know, because it's not really a creature of statute. It's like it's been kind of developed over time, and every community has different approach to site plans. They might impose things like character qualification, for example, but each community usually has a different
So maybe there's
series of rules.
at a future date. So what we're trying to do is, so our next meeting will be a working session to go through an exercise to just see what we think we can do, what we would like to be able to do, what constitutes just a better interpretation of the power we already have, what would necessitate giving ourselves asking for a new power. So at some point, it might be worth looping you in to see if we've crossed any lines we didn't mean to cross.
And I had a very quick preliminary conversation with Ella about some of the, a couple of these issues as well. So sure.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Just a record, you did a great job with the paperwork and the document.
Yeah, that was not
Very
very
nice.
bad.
I know you're probably a little busy, but you did a great job.
Okay, so next meeting is February 18th, it's Wednesday, our new second meeting of the month.
Do the comment on that?
Yeah.
City
Council.
council.
The council.
But is that really true?
It's something we need to address seriously.
It probably is if it's I mean, we don't want to run upside the city council, I don't think every time, do we?
But no, not on purpose, yeah. I'll just take a look at it.
I mean,
Did you-
sometimes we'll have stuff in front of the council that we'll want
I believe it's probably true. I didn't check.
This is the 18th, all that I see on the calendar for February 18th is the Board of Health meeting. Maybe it's like an optional city council. What did Al say? It's sometimes
Only a
used,
regular place, I do your regular
Yeah.
meeting.
not on the calendar, maybe they just take.
to. When's the regular city council meeting? Then that might not be an issue.
Well, it isn't for February, at least per the calendar today, but maybe it is sometimes, or they have special meeting time.
The city council meetings take place on the third Wednesday of each month at 6:30.
Okay.
At John's Lawn.
This looks like it's on, well, this month it's on the 25th according to the calendar,
About March.
which is the fourth on Wednesday.
At the city committee chairs meeting, there was a discussion to move February's because it coincides with the school vacation week.
But generally, it is a third.
Yeah,
Wednesday.
third Wednesday.
Okay,
Generally, yes.
okay, well, we're gonna stick to ours for this month.
Yeah, well, it's not a conflict this month.
Yeah, it's not a conflict this
Yeah.
month, right?
Good luck, so maybe we can revisit that. I know it's been challenging to find a date that works. Maybe so anyway, let's put that on the agenda to figure out.
Okay.
Anything else for the agenda besides what we were already planning to? I know you were slammed with all this, so we're gonna talk next week.
There is also an update to the tree guidelines that was prepared. So I invited Margot and she's sending someone else
Okay,
to present on that.
great.
I was just.
Do we want to review the purpose? That was our homework. Do we want to do that or?
I think
Is it too soon? for that?
Maybe, I don't know,
The
if
site plan?
why not talk about this? So the thought we had was to go through a site plan exercise.
Site plan exercise.
So one of the questions was what is a good site?
Sure.
We had arrived at maybe the car dealership. You suggested the project we looked at pretty recently in an email to me, but we talked about maybe a project in a different town, like Northampton or something, a nearby town that is of the sort we would see on Main Street, likely at one of these sites someday. So that it isn't something that was just approved but isn't built. I mean,
Yeah,
we didn't want to make
and
any political.
I mean, I
waves with it.
appreciate the controversy there because I don't even know what's going on with that project. Is it happening? Is it not?
I think it's happening. I don't know, but I don't know if we need to
Well,
take.
what
much
I thought was
that's it.
interesting about that building was we had the ground floor issues with the cannabis commercial use, which could we have
Oh,
said?
that building, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about a different one.
No, I'm talking about that one, the one, and then you said, let's put windows up top.
Yeah.
And they said, yes. Now, I don't know if we could have really insisted on it. That building is not historic. It's next to some pretty buildings.
We didn't, there was a condition.
Was it a
Yeah,
condition?
it was a
And we did
condition.
impose it?
Yes. I guess the challenge of that building is it's only has so many moving parts because it's a renovation of an existing
Oh,
building.
totally.
They're not changing the footprint. So to work with something that has a new building on a newly designed.
Oh, yeah,
site,
no,
you
no,
can talk
I
about pedestrians
understand.
and
It
lighting
wouldn't,
and
it
all that.
wouldn't do with that. All this would be helpful is understanding and the kind of site plan stuff that we
Yeah.
get that's a little more pedestrian.
Well, sure.
What kind of authority do we have?
Maybe that's another exercise. That's a second scenario is, okay, now we're talking about a renovation. They're only doing this and that. So what, yeah.
That was all we talked about. I thought about if we could turn it, turn the properties.
Yeah, well, that means we have the power to do that. So we say, sure, you want to put that there. But whatever use you put on that front has to be transparent,
Transparent.
period.
Yeah.
So if you want to do something else, yeah, sure, you can put that use in there, but not in the front. All right. But
So
anyway, but
That's what we're talking about.
We can talk about.
Let's find a good example. I'm going to look too.
Yeah, I reached out to the planner in Montague for any recommendations and also any conditions that she thought was exemplary. She did provide an example of
Yeah.
the project. It didn't seem as downtown, but it's all about the planting and landscape. So I thought that was relevant to the tree guidelines. And then I reached out because there's in East Hampton, right on the main street, kind of like south, I forget what that sweet little strip is, but there's a fairly new residential building that I think has some things to learn from, is aesthetically pleasing in some ways, but there might be things to learn from. So she sent me the site plan materials. I haven't reviewed them yet, but those were the two examples.
Okay. That's fine, great.
Found.
All right.
So both of them I think are like good examples rather than something. The example discussed before was like, I think a really suburban development that ended up downtown.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so far beyond.
So it wouldn't be as instructive.
Yeah, but I do feel more comfortable looking at things in other municipalities than where our small businesses are.
Yeah.
Side.
Okay.
Or large businesses.
Yes.
So we
All
good?
right, we'll move to adjourn from,
Make a motion to adjourn? No, that has to be,
yeah, who wants to go first? None?
aye.
Michelle, aye.
Peter?
Peter, I.
Yep, aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.